The voicemail arrived at 2:17 in the morning, and I almost deleted it without listening because the number was unknown and I was too tired to care. Then I heard the first 3 words, "Sweetheart, it's Mom," and my entire body went cold, because my mother had been dead for 11 years. I froze beside my bed, staring at the phone while her voice continued through the speaker, older than I remembered but unmistakably hers. She said only one sentence after that, "Whatever you do, don't let them open the blue door." My mother, Rebecca Hayes, had died when I was 21 after a sudden illness that doctors said had progressed too quickly to treat. I had spent years trying to accept her death, and hearing her voice again felt less like a miracle and more like someone had reached through a locked door in my past and pulled it open. I replayed the voicemail 17 times before noticing something strange in the background, behind my mother's voice. I could hear a faint ticking sound, followed by what sounded like 3 knocks against wood. I knew that sound. It was the grandfather clock from my childhood home. The house had been sold shortly after my mother's death, and I hadn't returned since the day I packed my belongings and left. But the next morning, I searched online and discovered something that made my hands shake. The property had been purchased 3 weeks earlier by a company whose name I didn't recognize. I called the number listed on the property records, but no one answered. Then, less than an hour later, another voicemail appeared on my phone. This time, my mother's voice sounded frightened. "Ethan, if you're hearing this, they found the room. My name is Ethan, and I had never told anyone about the hidden room. When I was a child, my mother had forbidden me from entering the basement, but one winter night when I was 12, I accidentally discovered a narrow blue door behind an old bookshelf. Before I could touch the handle, my mother appeared behind me and screamed so loudly that I had never forgotten the fear in her eyes. She grabbed my arm and whispered, "If you ever see this door again, run." I always assumed it was something connected to my mother's illness, something I was too young to understand. Now I wasn't so sure. That afternoon, I drove back to the house. The new owner wasn't there, but the front door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked almost exactly as I remembered it, except for one thing: the grandfather clock was still standing in the hallway, frozen at 2:17. I walked downstairs. The bookshelf was still there, and behind it was the blue door. My heart hammered as I pulled the bookshelf aside, revealing the door my mother had spent years hiding from me. The lock was already broken. Inside was a small room filled with boxes, old photographs, financial records, and dozens of cassette tapes labeled with dates. Then I found a photograph that changed everything. It showed my mother standing beside a man I had never seen before. On the back, she had written Daniel Ethan's father. My father had supposedly died before I was born, but the man in the photograph was wearing the same silver watch my father had supposedly been buried with. I grabbed one of the cassette tapes and found an old player on the shelf. When I pressed play, my mother's voice filled the room. She explained that my father hadn't died. He had disappeared after discovering that several people in the town were secretly stealing money from a local charity and laundering it through a medical foundation. My mother had uncovered the evidence and hidden it inside the blue room because she knew the people involved would kill her if they found it. Then came the part that destroyed everything I thought I knew. My mother's illness hadn't been natural. She had been poisoned. The recording suddenly ended. Behind me, the blue door slowly began to close. I turned around. A man was standing in the basement. He was older now, with gray hair and a scar across his cheek, but I recognized him immediately from the photograph. It was my father. He looked at me for several seconds before whispering, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." I couldn't speak. He told me he'd spent 11 years hiding because the people responsible for my mother's death were still powerful, and he'd been waiting until the evidence was strong enough to expose them. The voicemail, he explained, had been scheduled by my mother before her death and released through an old system whenever someone accessed the hidden room. Then he handed me a final envelope. Inside was a list of names: doctors, business owners, police officers, and one name I recognized immediately: the detective who had investigated my mother's death. My father looked at me and said, "Your mother didn't leave you a goodbye, Ethan. She left you a way to finish what she started." 3 months later, every person on that list was arrested. The investigation revealed that my mother's death had been part of a much larger cover-up, and the blue room became the evidence that finally brought the entire operation down. My father testified in court and was finally cleared of the crimes he had been blamed for. As for me, I kept one thing from that room: the old cassette containing my mother's voice. Sometimes I still listen to it, and every time I hear her say, "Sweetheart, it's Mom," I remember that some secrets don't stay buried forever. Some wait patiently in the dark, until the right person finally comes looking.